Uh, Hi everyone, thanks for joining today. We are today doing this workshop organized by Innovation Forum about microelectronics. We have today to talk about this topic Adrian Stalder from Microdul. So I'm very excited. I don't know, most of you, if you are here because you are interested in knowing more about microelectronics, this wonder of technology that we don't know really how it works until now, at least me. And if you are working with a medical device, I'm sure that you have heard about or you are already struggling with them. So today we have Adrian is going to tell us how they work in Microdul with all this system, how they go from the process of conception until delivery, and how they are supporting startups in all this process. So not extending more, so the stage is yours, Adrian. Take the stage.
I try to share my screen. I don't know, do you see the screen right now?
Yes.
Okay, you see also the laser pointer?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So you see in the background are my colleagues. They are currently working in the clean room, and I'm here in the meeting room. So thank you very much. I'm very grateful. Thanks to Innovation Forum giving me the possibility to talk to you about manufacturing of microelectronic devices. So I believe we have about an hour, and I'm sure it will be very beneficial for all of us. So you see on the next slide, you see my agenda. So you see with a nice view of our local mountain, Uetliberg, here from the top. Microdul is located just right here down. You see more behind is the lake. So we're very close to the lake, very centralized in Zurich. So you see here the agenda. First of all, I will introduce you to Microdul. Then secondly, I will talk about the medical product class 1 and 2, the active implant, that's class 3 then. Then I will give an insight information about project manufacturing, then process stability, which this is very key. Process stability, we just heard today that Medtronic get a recall because they had a battery issue, about 440 people. So that's quite important that the process stability is on a very high level. Then you will get a short insight with a video about how, in reality, the production looks like of microelectronics from the design to the final product. And I will give you a good practice advice and a special tailored support then what we do for our startups. So on the first slide, you see the history and facts of Microdul. We are about a company which has 30 years experience. We are a management buyout from Philips Fasalek here in Zurich. So we have one headquarter. This is in Zurich. The only fabrication is in Zurich. We are a privately owned company and about currently 89 people, 89 employees with a very high skill level from university with a high degree, master, doctor degree. Basically, the skills are, of course, electronic engineering, schematics, designing electronics, then in the chemistry, mechanical also for the assembly of the housing, the microelectronics assembly, then biology, project management, and quality management. That's also an important part. Our turnover is about, hello, our youngest attendee, I believe. Right now we have about 20 million turnover. About 70% of our big turnover is in the medical area and 30% in the industry. Finally, it's financial from the product, from the manufacturing capacity, it's approximately 50-50. It's just that the medical products are more expensive because then some components like batteries are on a higher price range. Then we have 3 product lines basically. That's number 1 is module. That's the miniaturized electronic modules we produce from schematics. Then the semiconductor, that's fabless. That's we have 8 designers designing ASIC, designing silicon, and then we have an external in Taiwan and in other countries related to the wafer and the packaging. In Malaysia, the packaging, and in Taiwan, the wafer. Then we have a thick film division. That's also here. It's printing ceramic substrates. That's for harsh environment. And currently, to give you an overview, we have about 30 medical projects. Out of it, about 11 medical projects of implants that are running currently in our production. So Our competence is basically the miniaturization of the electronics. So, and it's really true that we operate in a niche market with a very high specialization. We have the know-how from the IC development to the final products, the final implants. So we also can support you from the first prototype, from the material organization, obsolescence management for all the components till the final prototype to the mass production. Basically, we start always with the schematics and the bill of material. We have ISO certification, ISO 9001, and of course the ISO 13485, which is mandatory for the medical products. So we have a big position in history about the audits. So over the last 3 years, we had 3 audits from notified body and approximately 16 customer audits, which are out of 14, of course, from medical customers. And of course, we do also audit our suppliers. So unfortunately, the last 3 audits we had with video call because due to the COVID situation. Then here you see the 4M, miniaturized medical module manufacturing, Microdul. It shows actually a one-stop shop concept from the idea to the final product. We actually could offer the one-stop shop concept, but only available for selected customer and selected projects because it's quite demanding, especially here at the development of the product to find the ID, to all fill up this technical file, to define the project management and supplier management. And on the end of the product, you see here the housing and so on, the final test to the final product. We're working also together with external partners. That means mostly we work with external partners on this area and also at the beginning. So our core competences are these 3 blocks here. It starts from product design. That means it's the technical file, the electronical engineering, the chip, the electronic engineering, the schematics. We take the schematics and make a layout. We do the miniaturization, the PCB design, also the ASIC design if required. Then we produce the product itself that you see here, electronical production. We attach components on the boards and so on, as you see it here. We take care for the component management. That means purchasing obsolete materials, replacement materials, and so on. We also can do test the material. We do the lot acceptance test to validate them for medical. And we also can do the traceability, of course, and then our process I explain later on, the assembly process. That's SMT, chip on board, and so on. And of course, we do 100% electronical tested product we deliver to the customer. Also, we take care for the reliability testing. That means it's temperature, humidity test, and so on. So this is a one shot about all the Microdul capabilities. But again, mostly we focus really on these three blocks where we start from the bill of material, the schematics, till the final tested products. So the next slide is about the medical implants. So we are coming first to the active implants and then secondly to the medical products, which are outside around the human body, but still for medical purpose. So we see on this big slide here, we start with the brain interface. There are many players on this field and it's very new since about a few years. So one of the players, for example, Elon Musk with a Neuralink, and we are proud to support one of these big players. The second one is the glaucoma. So we have a special agreement with the customer to develop also new assembly technologies, because you can imagine the glaucoma, it's a sensor in the eye, in the human eye, so it needs to be extremely small. We work with 01508 components. So the components are not anymore used with the SMT standard technology with soldering, so we're going towards more to gluing technology. And of course, we have a close cooperation with these customers. The third one is incontinence. That was a startup. We have a triangle partnership. That means we have an engineering company, the customer, and Microdul in the middle. So we have somebody taking care for the motor drive engineering, somebody's taking care for the production of the electronic parts that are we, and the customer takes care for bringing the product into the market and do the final assembly, and he's doing also the testing, because the testing needs to be included also with the motor. So we have the cochlea division. So since about 15 years we produce for cochlea companies. So there are 6 big suppliers on the market. We support 5 of them with the implantable electronics, also sometimes with the backside puck on the earring. Then the circulatory support, that's actually an LVAD blood pump. That means it pumps the blood from the left heart chamber directly into the aorta. So we produce already the 3rd generation. This is a very big international customer, so he's very demanding, a very long-term customer. But on the other hand, he's very satisfied with our level of working with our competences. Later on, you see a little bit more why. We have the left ventricle aid. We have the heart failure. That's, I believe that's here. That's the heart rhythm stimulator. So it's basically using current, and it's going to stimulate the heart. This product, it was invented by cardiac surgeons from Germany. They started with 3 to 5 people, 2 surgeons and 1 engineer, and now they ended up with 20 people. And we act there as a general contractor. That means we have done the full range from the idea, the concept. We have done the documentation till the final hermetical sealed, sterilized and packed product, which looks exactly like it is now here inside the titanium housing. Then we have a pump for liver disease patients. So this is called Alpha Pump. This is a Swiss company, also a startup, which is since 6 years now on the market. This is a pump. This is the only product which takes care of the housing made out of PEEK. It is not 100% ensured that humidity is not coming in. That's why electrical components inside are also coated with some special coating like Parylene to withstand the humidity of these products. Then a few products on the outside. So we start with the hearing aids. Typically is assembly technologies, rigid flex substrates, or also ceramic used. And we also use our microassembly mechanical finalization. Then the miniaturized camera for endoscopy. It is our experience there is doing technologies with chip on board, flip chip, underfill, and flex substrates. So typically we use ASM, OmniVision, Sony, and Samsung camera to produce our products there. So we have the temperature cluster. That's the next one, a very interesting product, the temperature cluster, because it's an ASIC designed by Microdul. It's a small piece of ASIC, ultra low power. The customer adds then an NFC chip, a battery, and so on, and the antenna, and the product is then finished. That was for a US customer. So we have a temperature monitoring system. That's also ultra low power. That's our ASIC built-in. It's actually a temperature locker. It is very common now because to transport medicine, to deliver drugs, pharmaceutical goods, it's very important whenever they are on a ship, they are blocked on a Suez Canal, for example, or they're on the way with drones in South Africa, that the products are always observed with the correct temperature. So at the end, you could see very easily whether the temperature requirements were fulfilled or not. So it shows you a cross or an OK sign, finally. Then we have on the sensor side, one of it very interesting is pulse oximetry. That means non-invasive monitoring on neonatal intensive care. That means on the babies, we measure the oxygen saturation, CO2, directly. This is a very nice product, and the measurement method is also optical. Measures the pulse and the oxygen saturation in an optical way. Then we have pressure sensing, a lot of different kind of products. So typically our core competence there is the handling of the sensitive MEMS sensors, typically coming in bare die form. So we produce chip on board and the wire bonding processes. And the neuronal probe, you see a picture here. This is the ASIC here. This is the SMD component. That's the flex. And here is the small needle. And this neuronal probe, that's for Seattle's Allen Institute for Brain Science. They're using it as a standard tool now worldwide. So we have produced more than 10,000 sensors of this case. So all universities are using this because they have on this ASIC you have about more than 600 electrode pairs on it. So one electrode has about a size of 12 by 12 micron, and the needle here is 20 micron thick. So they use it actually to cartographize the brain of the animals, so mice, rats, and so on. This is not a human implant or a medical product for humans. From now we are coming a bit more from the customer implants to the work behind the scene. That means how we deal with the project and the manufacturing challenges. You can imagine we have so many different kind of products, so we must have some certain rules and guidelines how we can work, or how our work is based on certain requirements. So project manufacturing, the challenges. So basically there's a question, what are the challenges in medical electronics? That means what is typical in medical electronic. So typically in medical electronic is, of course, and we see it mostly, the very low volume. That means a few thousands, but the process stability must be very high, on a very high level, versus an industrial product. The yield correlation is very important, and also most of the time the repair possibilities are restricted. This is very important when you're in production. There has always happened something, but replacing a components, when you have bad components out from the market, then this is not allowed or needs to be done with a special procedure, a special validated procedure. Then of course the cost. So the customer wants to have extremely high quality at a relative low cost. And those projects normally takes a very, very long time. Not to make the first prototype, but to do all the validation, qualifications, and the final registration till the product is on the market, from the first product process to the animal studies to the first human trials, and then they have to wait for the studies. So it typically takes around 5 to 10 years. So examples you see later on. And of course the diversity, so a lot of different processes, specification, documents, structures, and there is basically no medical standards. Huh? I mean, there are a lot of medical guidelines. That means there are components that have medical grade or higher reliability, but really not a lot of people understand what does it means. And of course, we can help you in that. Of course, on the other hand, there is ISO 13485. That means the sequence is defined, and there's also the MDR guideline it's defining. That's defining more the management, the way of working. So this I explain a bit later on. So now we come to the point. I mean, at the beginning I said there is no such thing as medical electronics, but only electronics for medical application. And here I like to show you the 5 main challenges to show you the difference between medical electronic and industrial electronic. What does it mean? What kind of effort stays behind it? The quality management, of course, this is based to a certain standard. That's ISO 13485. So we have all the rules, the regulation here, how we work. Then purchasing and production. So it's based on a requirement database. The components used needs to be specified. And of course, we produce according to IPC norm, class 3, or the different kind of norms, depending whether it's an implant or it's just a medical product. The qualification and approval, of course, documentation needs to be checked by an external company. That's typically called notified body. I mean, so basically there's no 100% correct rule. You define your documents and then you show it to the external body, and then he tells you whether this will work or not. So here we also can support you in that. So then endurance test, lifetime test. So you don't have to forget that you have to do many test series to fulfill all these requirements for all the different steps in the process. And then last but not least, cost optimization. That's the most difficult. So this you must think about before you do the first prototype. That means you have to do a good design, a design which also can later on be manufactured on a very economic way. But of course, with our approach and experience, we can make that your project becomes here successful. Now is the question, what is a technical file? You have here the short abbreviations, DFL and so on. And when I look into Wikipedia, what it tells me really, there is written, it is a set of documents that describe the product and can prove that the product was designed according to requirements of a quality management system. That's what Wikipedia says. And in detail, how we handle it, we start first with the design history file. That's very important. That's also needed according to the FDA. So basically there are all the design data, the risk management, all the norms are written in. And those norms, of course, they must come from your initial specification. The next one is the device master record. That's also according to our experience. So we have all the documents that we have done from the equipment calibration confirmation, the calibration records. That's very important for Microdul and for our production. The next one is the design history record. Here is not a problem to document the products and the given work and the process parameter. Here's more an issue about what kind of Q system Microdul has and you have. So this is very important that we're going to align the Q system beforehand, or at least the documents, how we exchange the documents. But here we have a lot of experience. So now we're coming to a real project manufacturing example. So you see here on the picture, it is actually a spin-off company and it was coming to us. The company had quite a lot of experience in blood transport, that means external pump system, and they had the idea to go inside the human body with this product. So, and they asked us for a prototype manufacturing. This was quite a long time ago, 2002. And at that time, the idea was that the first veterinary implant, it actually was designed for a cow, had about 260 SMD component, and it was 4-inch tall. You see about this size of a hockey puck, approximately. Sorry, I was too fast. Then we have started the second generation a few years later, and you see from this startup, the company was quite much growing, and we were always supporting them. And this is the first production we have done, the first really production on the human implant in 2012. Unluckily, we need to increase the number of SMD components to 319. But the size could be reduced. That was a good information. And then we continued with the development together with this customer. And now since 2015, we are in high volume production. It is an international customer. We could reduce the number of SMD components to 97, below 100. And the size is now reduced to 1.4 inch. So that means a physical volume reduction by 12 within this 10, 13 years. And now the customer is working, as you see here, on the 4th generation together with us, because the current product has a cable which goes to the human body, and he wants to eliminate this cable. So he wants to have a power transmission directly through the skin into the product. So that's then much better for the end customer. I think this is a very good example how we support customer. We support startup customer really from the functional sample, from the first breadboard till to the qualified high volume product. The next one is process stability. So I don't know whether somebody of you has any idea if I ask you how many processes are involved in an electronic board. For example, for a hearing aid, a cochlear implant, maybe you come up to 5, 10, 20, 100 processes. But in our point, we had about 24 basic processes. That means some processes are repeated, front side, back side, curing, and so on. So finally, there are about 85 processes in total involved in that manufacturing for the electronic part of a cochlear implant. And then to use these processes, we needed about 22 equipment. And on the next slide, you see a few of those 22 equipments. So you see on the left side, the chip on board. There you see the wires, the chip here. This is typically bonding on ASICs on open devices. So we have many methods there. That means we can use the wiring, we can use the gluing, we can use the gold aluminium wire bondings, we can use also stud pumpings, we can use anisotropic conductive. That's also a kind of gluing with temperature. We can also use UV light, and all these processes needs to be guaranteed under a certain humidity and temperature. In the middle one is a typical standard SMD process. That's a little bit more simple. Therefore, we have various dimensions, various chip sizes, various capacitors, resistor sizes. So, and we do also flip chips with the same process down to 100 micron. On the third one category, this is mechanical. So mechanical drilling, welding, milling. So here you see a picture of laser welding of contacts. That's mostly for our implants, the feed throughs. They have some mechanical feed throughs. That means an interconnection, hermetically sealed interconnection between the inside electronic and the outside of the implant. So to ensure this, the process stability at Microdul, there are different ways, and we decided many years ago to use the V model for all our process qualifications. Then you see here the V model. It starts with the installation quality on the equipment, and operation quality and performance quality. What means qualification? I mean, qualification is simply need to have a documented evidence that the process is reproducible and, of course, fulfills your requirements. The requirements which are the specification and also fulfills finally the requirements of the assembly of the equipment and of the operator. When we go to the next one, you see here how the procedure is running. So first, we always do a risk analysis because you need to know every process is different. Like a curing process has temperature, humidity. There is the material with thermal expansion. A laser welding process has also some other requirements. You have some test criteria. So first, you start always with an FMEA. To define the critical points, to give them numbers, to have a data matrix, to see which are the critical points you need to do a deeper validation or a requalification of a certain processes. Then you start to write the qualification plan. Then, of course, the execution, producing, doing the quality checks and the results, and then we put everything in a production report. And what we do here right now, we try out Microdul to have an unchanged base. That means the installation and operation quality to have this unchanged and only modify the product specific requirements. That means the PQ or a simply requalification of a performance quality. Because we worked on with the schematics, we refer to similar processes. So now my laser pointer is not coming back. Okay. So you see, process control is really very important, and as better you control your process, as better you have later on, you can keep your high yield and you can keep your good quality that you want to deliver to your customer. So let's see, my mouse is okay. No, my mouse is not coming down, but nevertheless, I leave the laser point upstairs on the screen. So the standardization of an economic production, how we do this. So basically, we had the idea to using the modular concept, and this was invented by Microdul. I can explain you here with basically when you have 3 different projects, you start with project A, you have 6 different kinds of processes. You get a new project. And then, for example, project B, it has maybe 1 new process. that one here, and project C, it has another process here, which is not completely new, but which is very similar. So then you can do a reuse process, you can do a requalification here, and basically you can follow for a new product, you can use the 6 processes from the earlier product and the new requalified process from the process C and the completely new process from project B. So this is with this puzzle we try to reuse to avoid requalification all the processes again. So we try to reuse the already done qualifications. And of course, this is only possible due to our big knowledge we have here with all these different kinds of products and processes. So here an overview about the processes we are used and the equipment we are used in our factory. So we have about more than 100 equipments actually running in the production. Some they are used every day from morning 6 to evening 10 o'clock. Some others are used every second day, and from some component processes we have more than one equipment. But basically on the assembly technology, we have SMD, flip chip, vacuum soldering, resistive welding, also the control, it's X-ray to see what is going underneath the component. So optical inspection, BGA bowling, VGA bowling. So manual assembly process, also very important for some application, like a small coin. A coil, you never can produce or design a high volume assembly machine, which will fulfill all your requirements and which you use only for maybe 10,000 units a year, because such a machine would have a high cost and will produce 10,000 units maybe in 5 hours. So also silicon dispensing. On the next side, on the next area here, we have the clean room. So it's very important on open devices, bad eyes. We do the die-attached wire bonding, aluminum gold. We have dispensing, and now also we can do jetting. We can use it for glue to cover or to stick components or for underfill for CSP components. And we have some automatic optical inspection to measure the position. We have also a bioburden room that's for active implants to have this, let's say, to have no bacteria outside of the Titan housing. So that means they are in a very special room controlled. Then we have thick film, our hybrid production. We can use thick film on ceramic, that's aluminum oxide or steel or copper. That's typical screen print technology with laser trimming to do very accurate resistors. Also see here, like this, it's actually an electronic board. Instead of a PCB, it's on ceramic. It's for harsh environment. It can withstand higher temperature. It has better same thermal coefficient than silicium. That's why it's mostly used for amplifying sensors, small sensor electronics. Then we have an electronic test team. As I said before, we test 100% all the product. That's our goal. Why? We want to deliver quality. How we can deliver quality? Of course, when we have a final measurement. And we can use this measurement also to check our internal quality. And like this, we get to a very high level. So we have electrical test equipment in the clean room. We have also wafer tester, you see here. Big wafer tester, because we also design the ASIC, so we get the full wafer, 8-inch, for example. And on the module test, we have the national instrument tester with a lab view to drive it, so it's very open system. And then we have different test tracks for implant, for example. Now a product from, let's say, how a design review, and a good example from the production. It was a product, or it is still a product for secure mobile-to-mobile communication. As you can see here, this guy has a mobile phone. So there are 2 people using this mobile phone, and they have a secure communication in between. It's not software, it's hardware, and it's typically used for banking, for governments, and for agents. So for everybody that want to be ensured that your colleagues from the NASA are not getting some information out of it. So actually this customer, or more concrete, the engineering company from the customer was coming with a breadboard design and asked Microdul whether we could do the manufacturing of it. Here, this was the idea of the final product. It's a standard micro SD card size. Then we have done some brainstorming, and we say, okay, we need to do miniaturization. So this is the picture. We started here. We have reduced the chip thickness down to 70 micron. That you see, die 1, die 2. These are 2 chips. We have thinned them down to 70 micron. We have chosen a very thin substrate, about 55 micron. That's one here. And then we used also, of course, the chip on board technology. We placed this chip on the top of the other chip. And then we went into the first prototype run. But very, very surely, as you can see here, the picture shows also the wire. We had a lot of wires in this product, and we were very close to the top height. So the thickness is only 700 micron. Huh? It is about the thickness of 7 pieces of paper. So very thin product with 4 chips inside. But then sometimes the wire were on the outside overcoming, and there was some drops of air here, and the card was not nicely done. I mean, it was not electrical proven then. And then we have done some redesign, and how we could do this. We taught the number of wires. We reduced the number of wires to reduce the thickness here to increase the safety margin for the globe top. And then how we have done this, maybe you see this on this picture. I write it interposer. That's actually a donut interposer. That means that's a piece of it's a small PCB of polyamide with copper, which has a cutout here. That means basically the die is that this die number 3 is directly linked on die number 2, and then it's only on the outside. There is the interposer. That means interposers. It's actually reducing the numbers of wires you see here down from the first chip. We save the height, the margin here, and we do the wires here on the interposer down here. See, and you see here some passive components also. And finally, we have done the globe topping of this product. And at the end now, I think we can be very proud. So we have, since many years now, a very proven, a very nice production with an extremely high yield. So the yield is around 98.2 or 3% currently. When I remember at the beginning, the yield on the first substrate was around 60–70%. So I think this is a good example of the miniaturization we have done for our together and for our customers. So let's now look into the world of Microdul. So I have prepared a small video. I ask now Ricky to play it. Ricky, can you take it over?
Yes, I'm now shutting down the video.
Okay.
Can you see it well?
Thank you very much, Ricky. So I hope that you get a good insight about the Microdul production area. So I try to share my screen. Okay. So let me check again. I need to share the screen. It can take only a few seconds. Screen number 1. Okay, now you see again the screen. How with the video?
Yep.
Okay, so now I'll show you one slide with a good practice. That means I talk a bit about the Microdul experience we have done or we received from our international manufacturing for our international customers. So in summary, there are some learnings which I say they cannot only be applied for medical electronics, but mostly they are very important for medical electronics. So there are 8 things to consider when you're using a microelectronic device manufacturing and when you're working with a microelectronics device manufacturing. So basically, we call it norm. I mean, specification really needs to rely on it. I mean, your specification needs to rely on the current norm that your product must fulfill. Secondly, you need only to specify what is needed. We see this very often. So there are some details specified, which is only the general aspects needs to be specified. But this specification is very important. Then all design and input and specification needs to derive from a risk management plan. That's the basic. And the consideration of the critical design aspects right from the beginning, that's very important, because sometimes we see that there are some hermetic issues, some outgassing, some electrolytes or galvanic effect, especially on implants, on active implants, on the feed-through. We learn that. And of course, first is key the reliability, not the innovation. I mean, do not design new, nice, fancy processes. So reuse existing proven technology, proven materials, only put the invention in your really core technology. That can be, of course, new, but all the rest should be taken based on a proven base. And of course, your partner must have the medical design and manufacturing experience using the validated processes. That's very important. And of course, the budget must be enough for, and it must be have a certain size. That means that you also can do the product qualification. So, and last but not least, also, you should take care when you have a product, you should take care also about the components. You should remember at the beginning or think about how many products you need for the whole qualification run. So do not be cautious with it and say, I need only 50 products, because at the end, most of the customer needs about 200 products to do all the validation. And then we can support you also in buying component stock at the beginning, because then whenever you buy a new lot from a component, then you have to do the validation of those products. So I think this is very, very important. So in the next 3 slides, I explain you how Microdul supports startups, excuse me. So, but before I do that, I ask you, what is a startup looking for? Especially for the developing a medical product. So what are the reasons why you do the outsourcing? Of course, maybe you don't have enough capacity. You don't have all the processes to do this, but it's, I think from my side, most important is that you focus on your own competences, on your own task. You have to focus in the center, of course, is the patient or the system, the hospital or the medical indication. You have to be careful also about put your innovation in the regulatory strategy and submission, that you get the money back for your products. You focus on the clinical trials, on the market introduction, and also on the commercialization. And I believe on the rest, Microdul can support you. Microdul can support you in the concept, feasibility studies, prototype, quality assurance, Also regulatory information according to the electronic parts, then we can support you in producing the clinical trial material. And for the commercialization, you have to take care again. So with our 30 years experience, I can name a few topics which we really are key in supporting our customers. We support our customers, of course, with our technology advice for the electronic device manufacturing. And just as a small block, we can also support only the miniaturization or feasibility study. We offer that separately. Also process development and validation on certain projects. So also design review. Before you do a product, we can do design review and the PCB layout, maybe on Altium. Chip on board production, we have, of course, we can guide you what kind of wire, what kind of material is used. Also for the packaged device, this is very important, and we can tell for the component management. So of course, we support you in producing the products, as you've seen before, for prototype and cell manufacturing. And then we have a deep knowledge. Remember at the beginning, I said we're producing ASICs. We have an in-house reliability testing in the ASICs, and we can do failure analysis down to silicon level. And last but not least, we also, our network is very strong. We have good partnerships. We are integrated in the German network here, in the IG Exact manufacturing here for Switzerland, Swiss MedTech, and EMPA Düppendorf. That's one we can use for also ESD ledger testing. On the next slide, you see how typically we work with our customers. When there are bigger projects, we work in the so-called working packages. So we have different packages. We start with the requirements, feasibility studies, some key studies we need to do at the beginning to check the component specs, PCB design, the production test unit, the active implant medical device, sub-assembly, maybe the PCB is the product, if the electronic PCB is ready, we need to sub-assembly into the product, maybe laser welding, interconnection, gluing wires. And then we also can do later on the process qualification and the lifetime tests. That's typically done later on. That's not in the beginning. And of course, we support you for the sale production. And those proven modular concept is we can really tailor on your requirements. So exactly. So the second last slide is an offering example how we do it in reality. I mean, you have, for example, the product. You have a breadboard, some drawings, the concept, the ideas, and then we take care for the first prototype. Maybe you need 1 to 3 products to see whether they're really working. And I think here is already important that Microdul is at the beginning in your team, because we gain with the experience also, because then we take this experience to the second prototype manufacturing. That's then a new normal bigger one. There we can do a design review, a layout, optimization. We can shrink the product, make it smaller, and it can be already prepared for serial production. And of course, we support you for clinical studies. We produce all the products that you need, and we can do all the qualification and validation on the electronic parts. And we deliver you all the documents you need for the CE or the FDA. I think here it's very important that Microdul is already at the beginning of the demonstrators after the breadboard on the first prototypes that we are on the boat. We can guide you. We can guide you in the right area. That at the end you have really a product which is ready for manufacturability. And with all that, of course, you will have then a very fast prototype study ahead, maybe after the breadboard, maybe in 3 to 4 years, with all the products you need and all that on time for the market and with a scalable, reliable costs. Okay. So I'm here on my last slide. I thank you very much for your attendance. Of course, let's stay in touch. My wish is that we may develop new product very soon, or where we start into negotiation. And for that I'm always available for half an hour or an hour video conference call to discuss your projects, your requirements, also to give you consulting in assembly technologies and so on. So here are my contact details. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to the open discussion now.
Thanks. Also remember that you can book a one-to-one, as we said in the chat. So I see that someone raised a hand. So Yusuf, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, thank you for a great talk. Just a quick question. So how much funding, for example, like a startup, right? We were very careful about our use of funding. Would you need to begin?
You need financially wise, or from the concept side, or how is your question mentioned actually? Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry, I didn't. Maybe I didn't fully understand your question. What means how much do you need from a startup in question of financial, or in question of technical readiness, or?
Financially. So for example, like we have a product that's tested, and it works using an Arduino and things like that. But we obviously, that's not the product in itself. So how, and we would like to work with a company like yours to develop it further. But then we haven't really, because we're not really business orientated, so we haven't really approached any investors. And so I'm just wondering, do you have any suggestions on how much funding we should try to look for?
That's a very good question. So nowadays I have heard I had the biggest funding in Europe, and it was now 150 million for a company producing insulin patch. That was in Lucerne in Switzerland. It was an international company. But of course, this is quite a lot. But it's really depending. It's really depending on what kind of product do you have, whether you have an implant or an external part. And it depends also up to what kind of stage you wanted to go.
Yeah, like a wearable.
Yeah, like a wearable. It's very different. Let's say put a number, maybe 2 million, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Okay. Another hand. Okay, so Monica. Monica, go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, a bit in the similar question as before, but more targeted towards like how much does it cost to hire like a consultant service such as yours, for example, for to develop a prototype once you have a proof concept that you've done in-house for a wearable, so not for invasive, for non-invasive.
Okay, for a wearable. So typically, as I said, we also could offer the one-stop concept, but only depending on the requirements that the customer has. So typically, we work there in the development area. We work there together with a few engineering companies, and we can discuss this bilateral. But typically, I know those engineering companies. They start with first you tell them your requirements, your prep board, and you tell them what is your final target. Maybe you want to have this and this size. The function must be clearly defined and so on. And then they can give you a first offer. I mean, the first estimating offer, they always start with maybe 1 work week for starting the documents and giving you a concrete answer, working it and giving you a concrete answer whether your product can work with this size, with this battery, with these functions. Then you need an app, and then can give you after a week that they can give you a concrete quoting that with different working steps, how you should proceed and what it costs approximately. Because it depends when you say a wearable, that's maybe also an app involved and so on. So this app needs to be written. that's depending on the final requirements. I mean, and 1 week to observe all the documents 1 week and to give you a certain validated reply, it's around 6K euro, I would say, to get a first written feedback, a document where you exactly know where you stay and what kind of technologies can be used in your final product. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Is that okay for you?
Yeah. Well, I'm wondering more like, I guess the startups, like one of the biggest issues is in early stages is to get money
yes.
for,
yeah.
I guess, clinically valid prototypes.
Exactly. That's right. But yeah. But of course there are certain organizations, they make awards and they spend the money, and I think that way you should go, and then you can contact us, and then we can depending on the project, because if we see that the engineering is more dominant at the beginning, then we let you directly talk with the engineering company. Because we've seen if you're doing the general contractor, we do it typically for big projects, because then we have more involvement in the project also. Yeah.
Okay.
Welcome.
Flavia, you have a question as well?
Yeah, hi. Thank you very much for the presentation. I was wondering if you could give a little bit insights on the microchip shortage and its impact on startups, and what we as startups could do to, I don't know, have maybe a stock there, or can we rely that the manufacturers will help us? Maybe you can share your experience in the last months.
Yes, actually, I mean, in the last months, 2 months ago, I would have told you, yeah, we have no shortages. So we get a lot of letters from distributors. For example, they tell us the Microelectronics will have shortage in chip. All the deliveries are increased from 12 weeks to 24, 36 weeks. And really, sometimes it's very difficult. And in general, I would say we have no big issue with our current products and customer products. So with all the bill of materials, we only have 3 or 4 products which the component was not available at the right time. Some suppliers told us 1.5 years we had to wait, and then the customer has already ordered, and then we had three times to change the supplier, and finally we got the product. We got the transistor, but it was really hard for us because 3 times we get delivery notes from suppliers that they will deliver it in 4 or 5 weeks, but the product never arrived. So sometimes it's really a headache for all of us. So I think at the beginning, very important is that when you have done your breadboard, when you go to the first prototype, that you all, of course, select new components on the market, not very old one. Don't select components which are out of the working life in a year or 2. And then secondly, as I mentioned in the talk, is also to have at the beginning of the project to think about to order a certain stock. I just recently have a company which we're doing implants. We ordered a stock for 250 products for all the material. For all the material which that there are components that they have a value of €1. Some components have a value of €5, some of 0.1 euro. So that's very important that you order at the beginning the total number of components. Of course, when you need to change later on a few of those, then you order again this stock, but then you are sure you have it from one lot, and then you have the same components from the beginning of your product. That means from after the breadboard, first prototype, second prototype for the clinical trials, and so on. Yeah. Laura, that would be my answer to your question. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions right now? Jose?
Yes, hello. Yes, my question is more related to the working areas that you can provide support. For example, optoelectronics, no?
Yeah, okay.
Because, for example, a system that we want to miniaturize. And it's mainly optical, but also it has some optoelectronical parts, no?
Okay.
And so I wanted to know more or less this area.
I mean, optoelectronic part, typically we work with sensors from OmniVision, from Samsung, from Sony. We attach the sensor on the boards, typically for endoscope or 3D cameras, whatever. Optoelectronics sometimes means also fiber optic links. So, and therefore fiber optics links, we could not support you because fiber optics links typically need to have a precision of 1 micron. And to attach on optical chips. I mean, this kind of optical assembly, we cannot support you because this needs an active alignment. But all the others to attach lenses directly on the chip or to attach lens carriers with housings on the chip, we could support you. And what kind of optoelectronics are you working? Are you working on this laser electronics, opto, where you need to have an extremely high precision of 1 micron or sub-microns?
Yes, we have a laser system that yes, that we need to monitor the intensity on different parts of the optical system, no? Yeah. And then with this monitoring, we need to tune some parameters of the system in an automatic way. Yeah. So it's for example, just to have for cameras or the systems that go to regulate the of light optically, not by sensor.
Okay, the quality of the transmission was not always very good, but basically we could support you in every attachment of components. That means optical lens and so on. As soon as they are in a precision of 12 micron, 3 sigma, so we can handle that. We have visible glue. We can discuss that. Yeah, I think for that we should get in contact. Okay. I don't know your name.
Jose Suarez.
Yeah. Jose. So, I would say anyone who is interested in connecting with Adrian and Microdul in general, I put the link in the chat to book a session directly. So it's a free sort of session where you can discuss your idea, discuss your like particular needs, and yeah, you can go much more in detail with your particular application, which would be great.
Yeah, even so, the voice was not very loud. I really could not hear. Maybe I need to.
Oh, sorry. I can repeat again and speak a bit more loudly. So anyone who's interested in having further conversations or just having a discussion to just see if you, address any questions you may have, I put a link in the chat to book 30-minute session with Adrian and the Microdul team, and they can discuss your idea in more detail.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's great. So are there any other questions? Please feel free to go ahead, raise a hand, or and actually while we're waiting for that, I actually have a question on my own. As I've worked with cochlear implants, I was interested to see that you were working on electronics there. I know one of the issues with recent cochlear implants and also like generally is the immune response, and actually like those sort of longer term failures, where like partial failures of the electronics due to wear and tear, etc. Do you do any sort of validation on the biological side of interest, or is the validation mostly sort of electromechanical stuff?
Okay, yeah, understand the question. I mean, it's to be honest, it's more on the assembly side, as a contract manufacturing, the glues, the assembly technologies. It's less on the biomedical side. That's right. Of course, our products need to be cleaned, sterilized, and so on. But on the biological side, we are producing MEA sensors, so we know the surface must be very holding very clean. We are not allowed to touch the surface, so we have the clean room. We have also the bioburden clean room, but really dealing with the bioelectronics. It's more than on the customer side or on the chip itself. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, of course. No, I was just wondering as a sort of general consideration.
Yeah.
And are there any sort of common pitfalls or underestimations that you see from people starting off, especially say with people with prototypes who want to make it into a medical device? Are there any sort of general pieces of advice or pieces like things that you see that people kind of underestimate or should think about while they're developing the solutions?
Yeah, I mean, basically, as I said, as soon as you have the ID, the breadboard, as soon as you have the structure from the company, you know where to go. Then it would be good if you could contact us for the first prototypes, because we could take care for the manufacturability later on to guide you also in the different kind of technologies. That would be my general advice. Yeah. So I mean, it would be general advice. Don't normally, some customers, some startups going first to prototype manufacture. That's also possible. We do not offer the prototype manufacturing as a nutshell. So we offer only the prototype manufacturing when we see that there is later on possibilities that you're doing later on business with us, that we have some chance, some opportunities. I know there's a lot of other components offering only prototype manufacturing. Also, universities sometimes do small prototype manufacturing. That's also okay, because we're also working a lot with those universities together then later on to take over the products from a real prototype manufacturing to the serial production. Yeah, that would be my answer.
So it's something you can kind of build once you've got the prototype. You can build sort of a larger grant and work with you towards developing something.
Yeah.
So I see Isaac has a question.
Hi, Adrian.
Hi, Isaac.
Thanks for the talk and taking the time. I just had a question. Do you get many customers which start off with a non-clinical application that might have applications in humans later down the line? Is that I'm just wondering from a standpoint where you might have different requirements at different stages, and whether how you might advise a company that ultimately may want to become a regulated medical device in the future, but not for the initial market. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, basically, as many at the beginning, I mentioned also we have about 50% of our real production is industrial electronics. So, the people behind our projects are the same people, the equipments are the same, the processes are the same. The only difference is the validation and the starting point. So we do much more validation, verification of products, some more destructive tests. We do a lot of more documentation and a little bit more traceability. But finally, for us, it actually doesn't matter whether the electronic goes into a human body or whether it goes into a train, on an IGBT train or an amplifier somewhere in a bigger electronic boards. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Yeah. So it's just because part of some of the advice, thinking in the long-term picture of how easy it is to take a device and what considerations there might be from the beginning. To make sure that any prototype and product that you generate for a non-clinical application can be easily translated. And I guess from what you're mentioning is just all the processes are the same. It's just you're going to have to redo those all of those checks and verifications.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Exactly. You're welcome. Thank you, Isaac.
No, that's great. So I think we're just about coming to time. If there are any further questions, then yeah, please feel free to use the booking system, put in the chat, and also I'm sure Adrian would be very happy to answer any of your questions going ahead. And yeah, finally, we've got all the other workshops coming up. So we have ones on theme building sort of more registering products and regulatory affairs, as well as making other kind of sort of more consumer-facing products as well on sort of the large scale. Yeah, those are really interesting ones coming up. And yeah, thank you very much again for Adrian and Microdul for giving the workshop and supporting Imagineer. And yeah, thank you very much, and hope you all have a great evening.